video. This week's vlog is my reset. We will be getting ready for a new month of reading. The first thing that I'm going to do for the reset, we are going to go through the books that I've hauled this month, sort them, get them all categorized on Goodreads, and then onto my shelves. But first, I do want to go through the weekly TBR to show y'all what books I plan to read this week. First, I will be starting my days with Devotions by Mary Oliver. This is the selected poems of Mary Oliver. I like to say it's her best of album. She is very much into like nature poetry. The book that will be the main focus, but probably not for long, I honestly could see myself finishing this book today, and that is The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. We have our main character of Noah, who he has come back from World War II. He came into some money, has bought a house, but he's a hopeless romantic. He is still thinking of this girl. I don't know if hopeless romantic's the right word, but he's a romantic. And there's this girl from his past when he was in high school that he still thinks about. And she was a lot of a higher class in society, whatever. And they might have a second chance now that he is home from the war. But the thing is that she is engaged to marry a wealthy lawyer, but she also cannot stop thinking about Noah. Then my mood read, which if we finish The Notebook, this will become our main focus, and that is Think of Me by Frances Layardette, which is it says an epic love story, a second chance. We start out in 1942 in Alexandria in Egypt, and we then have England in 1974. But really these two timelines we're going between James, who is a vicar, I think is the word. He is a priest. And now his wife has been dead for 10 years and he is now an empty nester because their son has gone off to university, and he's trying to make sense of life again and is really putting himself into his career and his community. But then we have chapters from Yvette's perspective. Yvette was his wife, and she has moved from Alexandria to a small town in England with James because they are married, and it's her adjusting to life in England and life as a mother, and a mother who has lost a child. Lastly, we have my ebook, and that is Wayward by Chuck Wendig. This is a sci-fi, I would say post-apocalyptic at this point, but there has been a pandemic that has wiped out the majority of the population, and this is showing how society and civilization rises again after such a disaster. And those are all of the books that I plan to read this week. Pause. This is kind of scary. This is coming up that I already own it. Did I get this at a thrift store or something before? I'm gonna have to go through all my romance shelves because I might actually already own this. I actually forgot that I have some books I had frozen and I have them out of the freezer now. I need to add them to this stack as well. It does look like I own a copy of In 5 Years. I'm not sure if I got it new or if I got it secondhand, because I did look it up on my photo app on my phone, and I have not actually got to cataloging this shelf yet. So that is definitely how I made that error. I just don't know. It looks like maybe I got it on Book Outlet or on eBay maybe. I don't know where I got that book from because I usually keep the one that is newer, because I actually do have another case of this. On Goodreads, I had not listed that I had owned this book, and turns out that when I was cataloging my books, I found out that I do own it, and that's Trust by Hernan Diaz. So I did freeze it and everything, but it is going to a little free library. But these other books that I have to show y'all, I haven't shown in a full feature-length video, and I'm going to show them to y'all. So I have Paradise Lost by John Milton. That'll be a fun one to read. The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, and Lucky by Marissa Stapley, not sure. But those are the books that I got at Goodwill like 2 months ago, and they've been sitting in my freezer. It is so cold. I was just feeding the cats and turning on my like outside decorations. It's cold. It was 30 degrees last time I checked, or it feels like it's 30, and if that's what it feels like, that's what it is. I don't care. But I got all the books sorted by genre. We had 2 classics, 1, 2, 3 contemporary, 1 historical, and 4 romance. And then we have this book that needs to go in the unhaul. And then With Love and what? Sorry, I'm seeing the book that was right there. In 5 years, I'm going to compare it to the copy that I got from, I think, Book Outlet, and just see which one is in better condition and keep whichever one is in better condition. But we are going to go shelve these books now. Going to be doing classic and contemporary first, which are up here. So this is going to be fun of finding out how I am going to do that. Okay, we have our classics, then the contemporaries. Very difficult. I don't know if y'all can tell that there's this outer layer of the bookshelf that makes it really hard for hardbacks on the top and bottom shelves. I didn't fix the fantasy books over here. So yeah, we can move this one back. But yeah, they're really tightly fit. I don't like these. I inherited these shelves, so not my choice. But I will take any bookshelf I can get. So we have our historical down here. Have a gap right there. Then we have our, so historical continues. This was the new historical. Again, kind of some gaps. Then this is all nonfiction. Romance. We added a romance down here. And that's all. So now we're going to go upstairs and see which copy of In 5 Years is the better copy. It's cold up here because there's no AC or heater up here. But okay, In 5 Years, whoa, this is really nice. And then we have this one that I just got. This is so difficult. I honestly think the one that I already own looks like it's in better condition than the new one. Y'all can't see that. Let me move y'all. So this is the one I already owned, and this is the one that I got this month. There's definitely a color difference. The one that I already had is more like yellow, when this one is brighter. And then here, side by side, or this is lighter and the newer one is darker. That's very interesting. Ooh, but mine has like the annoying sticker on it. This is so hard to choose between. I think I keep the one I already had. That's usually what I do. That's like what I did with the Trust book by Hernan Diaz. And decided they're not going to get rid of in the next, when this video will be up. So let me know in the comments below. Should I keep the one I already own, or the one that I bought not knowing I already owned it, because for some reason it was still on my Goodreads shelf. So which one should I keep? The one I already own or the one I got? While I'm up here, I am going to catalog. This is the shelf that I am currently on. What I do is just make sure that they're in Goodreads Storygraph, so I don't have that error of buying a book that I already own. That doesn't happen again. And just so like Storygraph, but I do this, I send on Storygraph so I know exactly which edition I have, so that page number adds up and that kind of thing. And then on Storygraph they have a feature that's audio, physical, or ebook. So just to have it all like clarified, I just scan these and put them into the apps. So this is the shelf that I'm currently working on that looks like it's all historical fiction. I finished the notebook. We are going to be doing a call pal for that. Literally read this book in 3 days. My copy is I think from 96. I can definitely see like moms on a vacation with their kids reading it on the beach, even though it's a lot deeper, because you would think this is a really commercial story. Shocked me. The writing and themes were just a lot bigger than we see in romance today, and we're going to talk more about that. First, we're going to talk about the characters, and this is where I'm really conflicted. I think this book could have been an epic. I think that it deserves to have so much more rather than 213 pages, which is about a little less than 6-hour audiobook length. With Noah, I found him to be so relatable. I think he's an INFP. I'm sure somebody has done the personality types for the characters, because this is pretty much a modern classic if you ask me. And he is such a dreamer, a romantic. I love how he looks at the world. He's often described as a poet, even though he doesn't write poetry, but he loves reading poetry. They're both really artsy people, which I didn't expect. I did really like him as a character. Now, Allie, I didn't feel the same way, because there's just some iffy stuff of her being in a relationship and seeking out Noah. I didn't like that. There was also the aspects of kind of like accepting what her parents put out for her, but we do have to remember this is, I think, 1946. It was in the 1940s. Women, it was different for women back then than it is now. So I'm feeling really conflicted and think I'm going to do a 3-star for the characters, but I didn't feel really like a strong connection to the characters. I just wish there would have been more, because this whole thing just feels very surface level to me, and I feel like there could just be so much more to the story. Let's talk about the atmosphere, which was amazing. I'm giving the atmosphere a 4-star. A lot of modern day contemporary romance that I read doesn't mess with the atmosphere that much. It doesn't play around with the atmosphere. They're usually generic, but this, I was shocked by how atmospheric it was. It has that dreamy quality to it that romance brings. We love it. Nicholas Sparks spent a lot of time building this setting, this house, and the nature around it. He spent a lot of time building that. Sorry, that was kind of repetitive just then. And you don't see that in romance today. Romance writers don't really give an F about the, not chemistry, sorry, about the atmosphere. That really amazed me right off the bat, getting out of the prologue and going into the story, going to the 1940s and seeing that atmosphere and how it was written. I was actually kind of shocked. Also, I do want to go back to the character work. The character of Allie reminds me of Daisy in The Great Gatsby, especially the movies. She had this great love, then they get separated by outside forces. He goes to war. But then she marries this well-to-do man, but still has feelings for that guy from the past. It's exactly the same thing as Daisy from The Great Gatsby. And my grandma has always been a Daisy hater, and she laughs at Nicholas Sparks. So, don't know what that says. But let's go with the writing. The writing was also something that amazed me. It's not simple. A lot of times I say romance is easy, accessible to read. Now, yes, I did fly through this. I read this in 3 days, but it's so complex with the feelings and emotions and how they're described. Writing is a 4-star, by the way, because it's not my absolute favorite. I am like a blunt, short Joan Didion kind of girl. where this is, as I said, very much in-depth and thought-provoking, and he knows so well just how to write about soulmates, which we'll talk about that more with the plot. But I was very shocked by this writing style, because again, we don't really see that. I would say it's even literary. We don't see that much. When I think of The Notebook and Nicholas Sparks, I think commercial literature, but this was a lot more literary than I expected it to be. We will talk about the plot now. Now, the second chance romance and all that doesn't do a whole lot for me. I don't like that. I think it's just, I don't want to say icky, but there were cheating vibes that I mean, she did cheat. She 100% cheated. I don't like that, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't like Allie as a character. I think it was unnecessary. I could go more into that, but I'm not going to go too much into that. But didn't like the love triangle aspects with those chapters of them in the past, in the 1940s. I didn't feel a real connection, but then we get to the modern day when they're old. That had me feeling emotional. It had me feeling sad. You always hear about The Notebook making people cry. Those chapters, or chapter, it did it. I felt emotional. I didn't cry. I thought I would, because he just wrote love and soulmates so well. And just so, this is probably like, that was like the realest love I've ever read of what love actually feels like. I need to make note of that. What love feels like. It's so powerful, and just the heart. I do think it was done. That was done very well. But as I said, with the plot line in the 1940s, that was what I didn't care for. I didn't feel a connection between these characters. And I really love the inspiration for this book, and think that is a very romantic. Nicholas Sparks was inspired by his wife's grandparents, and I found that so romantic that he was inspired by this story and wrote it kind of like for his wife. Like that, Nicholas, he did that. So with the plot, I think I am going to do a 3. Intrigue, a 3 as well, and logic, we'll do a 3, and enjoyment, yeah, it was overall 3-star vibes. So we will do the math and see where this equals out to. This is going to be getting a 3.25 on Goodreads. This is one. Do I keep this? Do I unhaul it? Oh my gosh, we're doing that so often in this video, because to me, a 3-star and below I give away. Now the 3.25 is where it gets tricky, where I'm like, do I keep it? I don't know, but I am going to go write a physical review and do all my reading journal things. And that's The Notebook. Our next focus will be Think of Me. I will actually go in depth of this, read the synopsis to y'all, probably around 8:55, because I will have a halfway point update for y'all tonight. So I do want to just let y'all know more in depth of what this book is about, since it is going to be our main focus for the rest of the vlog. And for the rest, we're going to go into the nitty-gritty description of Think of Me by Frances Liardette now, since this is our new main focus of the vlog. An epic love story, A Second Chance. 1942, Alexandria, Egypt. Yvette Haddad and James Acton hold hands for the first time as bombs explode above them. As World War II rages on, they find their way back to each other time and again, their love a beacon for their survival. But their greatest challenge comes after the war in England. The path back to one another is uncharted territory that both must be brave enough to face. 1974 England. 10 years after his wife's death, James moves to the village of Upton to begin again. There he discovers a scarf that he doesn't remember, but somehow knows as well as he knew the feel of Yvette's skin. The scarf unravels the secrets he has held on to so tightly for years, but Yvette had secrets too, and as James follows a trail that leads him back through the landscape of their marriage, what he discovers about both of them will change everything. Maybe I should have read that description before I read the book, because I just went in blind. I'm currently on page 182, nearing the halfway point. Next clip will be an update on my notes for the 50% mark of this book. I didn't take any specific notes tonight, but I do have notes for this section. I'm at 54% in Think of Me now. The first one is, I don't want there to be a romance in the 1970s plot line. I am so, like, it's coming, and I know it's coming. I'm sure that's nice for these characters, but I don't want it. We don't need that. We don't need the romance. Even though if you look at this cover, it's romantic, but we don't need that. The structure in Yvette's chapters, which are the ones, it does alternate chapters. I'm not a fan of the structure because I can't tell when we are, where we are. It starts out in, I think, 1964. I don't know if these are journal entries, which seems to be very popular in the books I'm reading this year. If it's just her talking, I'm not sure on the tense, I guess. Then we have flashbacks to the 1942 Alexandria, starting there and progressing through her life in England. The structure is just kind of weird, kind of choppy, I guess. It doesn't flow well and it's confusing. Apparently in 1946-47, that winter, there was a frozen potato crisis in the UK. I didn't know about that. I want to research that because that's like the worst time ever for that to happen. War is over and the potatoes are frozen. I'm a potato girly. I love potatoes, things that come from potatoes. I love them. America never had that crisis, thank you. And one was just making note of a part of the story just to remind myself what's going on. One is a theory of how these two plot lines are going to connect. I think Yvette. I think she knows one of the characters in the main timeline, in the 70s timeline. I just don't know exactly how it's all going to be revealed. And lastly, these characters are extremely developed. We have both of their perspectives, but I'm lacking connection. I don't know why that is. I don't know if maybe the author is just so focused on getting this historically accurate that there wasn't an emotional connection formed. Like, I like them. They're good people. And as I said, they are not perfect people. They have their flaws. I'm just not connected with them. Maybe at some point in the second half of the book, I will get that connection. I hope that I get that connection. I always want to feel connected to the characters, but it just hasn't happened for me yet. And that is my update on Think of. Hey guys, it is Tuesday. I want to talk about the reset activity that we're going to be doing today. We're going to be going through all the books that I have completed so far in the month of February, and we're going to see if I'm going to keep or unhaul them. I talked about before what I do with this. With the books I keep, I put my stamp in, so if it ever gets lost, somebody, if they find it, they know where to return it to. The ones that I unhaul, I put my business card in so people can check out the channel, because chances are if I donate these books to little free libraries, chances are if they're at a little free library, they like reading and might want to check out the channel to get some book recs. We got to get that self-promo out there. I also decided I am going to keep the notebook. If this was not a book that had belonged to my mom, I probably would unhaul it, but since it was a little higher than a 3-star, I do think it is going to be worth keeping. And since it is such a classic, that who knows, and maybe once I watch the movie I might have differing opinions. I don't know when I'm going to watch the movie, so don't ask, because I don't know. I haven't even looked what sites it's on for streaming, but it's one of those movies that like everybody has seen, and I have seen bits and pieces, but again, that was like 20 years ago. It's been some time, but that is all for right now. I'm gonna go reply to comments. That's what I do on Tuesday. Reply to comments, advertise. That's what we're doing. It's time for our nightly update on Think of Me. I got to 78%. I read 91 pages, which is crazy to think about. I feel like nothing really happened. We had big reveals and some of my predictions were true, but even if I predicted them, I'm satisfied with that. So it was predictable, but in a satisfying nature. I do have notes. The first is, this is really showing what war and what trauma can do to a relationship or somebody in a relationship. That war, I think, is, I don't want to say the most traumatic thing that somebody can go through, because there's a lot, but with war, so much encompasses that, so many bad things. I'm thinking of my Kindle books, the Century Trilogy. So much effed up stuff happens in war, and especially back then in the 1940s, there weren't as many resources as there are now for people dealing with PTSD, and mental health, there's a stigma. I mean, I still think there's a stigma with mental health, but especially back then. So characters like James don't have access to that. But we also have Yvette, who was a citizen in a city that was being bombed. So she also has a lot of trauma, but I think her main struggle is realizing that James isn't the same man that he was when they first met, because he was a prisoner of war in a German camp, in a Nazi camp. That's gonna mess somebody up, and she just can't accept that he is not the same person when James is looking at the situation like nothing has changed at all. So it's just really interesting seeing how, in this case, war, but you can honestly just go down to how just having a partner who has been through a traumatic experience, or both partners have been through traumatic experiences, and how that can change a relationship, and if a relationship can survive it. I do think a relationship can. I don't know if this relationship is or not, but it's a lot of work. And then this was me just saying one of the theories was true, and then I made another theory that I hope it's not going to be true, but I think it's probably going to be true, and that's kind of upsetting if you ask me. And then with those Yvette chapters where I am really kind of confused of what is going on there, what I'm reading, now I have a theory of that these are entries, and maybe we're supposed to be her son reading them. Don't know. I don't know, I'm not sure. But with Yvette, I definitely don't have I don't have a lot of sympathy for her, which I feel awful saying. This is like 2 romance books in a row. Well, this one is listed as historical fiction, but looking at the cover, that looks like a romance, right? And I read about a lot of people how they think romance is only the woman who's pitted to be the wrongful party in situations, which I do think you can look at this either way, seeing who's in the wrong and who's not. And I do think Yvette does try to confront these issues, but they don't have the proper skills to overcome these issues, at least not yet, because I don't know how this book is going to end or not, because it isn't a typical romance book, because romance, you know, has a formula of how everything's going to work out. This is a historical fiction book, just with a heavy emphasis on romance, in my personal opinion, but it's not a la-di-da, this is romance, all fun, butterflies. No, it's not that. We've talked about war a lot. War and peace, no. That was a time when I was reading Tolstoy books. But okay, back to the point where I don't feel sympathy for her, like, to an extent. I've talked about it before, I don't feel an emotional connection to these characters, but James is definitely the one that I like more, but we do get more of James as a character, in my opinion, because he's living and Yvette's not. So we're seeing him at different stages in his life where he has had time to grow and develop. But I do think these characters are very well written. I do think they're developed. I just don't have that emotional connection with them, and especially Yvette and how she is handling the situation of being like, you're not the same guy as you were when we first met, and she's telling him this, and I'm like, how do you not realize he was literally in a Nazi camp, a prisoner of war? Of course he's not going to be the same. But I had to be like, okay, this is in the 1940s. They don't know all the stuff about mental health that somebody in 2026 knows about. It's really conflicting. We will just have to see where the story goes. I don't know if I'm gonna finish tomorrow. I mean, I do think there's a good chance that we could, and then Wayward's gonna be our main book, and that should be fun. But that is all for it is Wednesday. Sitting on what I'm trying to show y'all. I did get some books today when I was out shopping, grocery shopping. Here's the notebook thing, vitamin C facial serum, because I'm running low on that. Again, that is a game changer. Just brightens your skin, or at least it brightened my skin so much, and I highly recommend it and have been doing it for years. There's no sale going on, but I got 2 books because I was like, oh, they have these books now, and they're books I've been wanting for a while. We have Mile High by Liz Tomford. These are, I like the one that just had the Chicago city skyline on. One time I was high at the dentist on the chill pills they give you, and I was talking about this book to the hygienist, saying I wanted to read it. Yeah. But this one has sprayed edges. Who's the publisher? Entangled. It also says Amara. I don't know if this is the airline or what, but new. This is the Windy City series. The thing that I like about this series, or at least from looking in from outside, is that it focuses on all sports, and I think that's really cool because a lot of times you'll just see a series focused on one sport, typically hockey, and this first book is hockey, but you have basketball, you have baseball. I don't know what all other sports it gets into, but I like that you take a city like Chicago that has all 4 major sports. Why not utilize that? It says, don't miss the beginning of the global phenomenon that's the Windy City series. I know, okay, so this guy, Xander's, is a Chicago hockey isn't complete without me. Everyone's favorite player to hate. So we have him, and then Stevie, who is a flight attendant for the team. I've been a flight attendant for years. I thought I'd seen it all, but when my new job lands me on board working for the most egotistical and self-righteous diva in the NHL, I start second-guessing everything. So is it going to be like enemies to lovers, forced proximity because they're on a plane? Oh, we have a playlist 2, Planes by Jeremiah featuring J. Cole as our number 1 song on the list. Northern California. I'm reading about the... Oh my gosh, the author herself was a private flight attendant for an NHL team. That is so cool. Okay, and the next one of my friends has already read this, and then some people I have followed online have read as well, and this is a Carolinian author from Winston-Salem, but this is The Correspondence by Virginia Evans, and it's told like all in letters, which is cool. I'm trying to see if there's just a short blurb for me to read y'all, but it's not looking like it. Sybil Van Antwerp has throughout her life used letters to make sense of the world and her place in it. Most mornings around 10:30, Sybil sits down to write letters to her brother, to her best friend, to the president of the university, who will not allow her to audit a class. She desperately wants to take to Joan Didion and Larry McMurtry to tell them what she thinks of their latest books, to one person to whom she writes often yet never sends a letter. Filled with knowledge that comes only from a life fully lived, The Correspondent is a gem of a novel about the power of finding solace in literature and connection with people we might never meet in person. It is about the hubris of youth and the wisdom of old age, and the mistakes and acts of kindness that occur during a lifetime. Sybil Van Antwerp's life of letters might be a very small thing, but in Virginia Evans' gifted hands, we see that small things can be subtly masterful and unforgettable. So yeah, that sounds right at my alley. Those are the books that I got today. It is time to do Call Pal on Think of Me by Frances Lyrdette, and let me say, the last chapter made me kind of emotional. It was only 1 page, not even a full page, but it made me kind of emotional. This is hitting very similar to The Notebook, but we will just have to see how all of this comes together. For the characters is where this is really interesting. I am going to give them a 3-star, as I think they are very developed. They have full character arcs. We see how they change and how they grow. I just never felt an emotional connection towards them, especially to the character of Yvette. I didn't hate her in any way, but I lacked sympathy towards her because she lacked understanding in her relationship. I do think everything did come full circle, and I was happy about that. That character just left me kind of feeling frustrated, but I do think they are well-written characters. I just lacked an emotional connection to them. Atmosphere, I'm giving a 4. This is very quiet. If you are an Anglophile, I think you'll like this because I think England is written so beautifully, and Alexandria was super cool getting to see because I've only ever seen it in an ancient setting during the time of the Ptolemaic dynasty rather than in the 1940s. It was very different than anything I had read before, when the English setting was more so like coming home for me because that's one of my absolute favorite settings in a book. Love England. And I think it was just written so well and so perfectly with the atmosphere was. As for writing, this is another one that we're going to give writing a 3 because it is very descriptive, which is not my writing style at all. I don't like descriptive writing. I think that does help build this description, build that atmosphere, but some of this I'm like, do we really need to know this? it's, when I see it, I feel like the author has to have a certain amount of words. Their publisher is saying they have to have a certain amount of words, and it's just too much for me. But there were some really beautiful excerpts. You can check them out on my Pinterest. I have a Pinterest board that's labeled books, where I take, if it's a book I'm not annotating, I take pictures of the pages of just excerpts that I thought were really beautiful. The general writing style, that wasn't for me. And then this can kind of fall into intrigue as well. It was just so long. I was so bored, which again, that's gonna fall into the plot as well. But it went on for far too long. As I said, this is a quiet book. Not a lot is happening. And for the plot, there isn't really a plot. Like, there is a plot, but not a whole lot is going on. But I think the main theme here is what trauma, and in this case what war, can do to a relationship, and how it kind of reinvents a person. But also this is a story of loss, because these characters have lost so much. But it's loss that I'm not gonna, some of these we aren't all going to experience, but it's something that everybody is going to be able to relate to. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of grief in this book. If that's a trigger warning for you, stay away. This is so difficult. I mean, when I'm thinking a lower number, I usually go with a lower number, because why would I be thinking that? So we're going to do that. A 2-star, where it didn't do a whole lot for me. This was mainly, the atmosphere and characters are what stood out for me. But yes, the intrigue will be a 2 as well, because there was some predictability, but in a satisfying way. As I was saying, I was bored. Not a whole lot was going on. And it went on for far too long, where I was just wanting this to get over so I can get into something else. Logic, I do think everything, as I said, came together nicely. We'll do that a 3. And enjoyment, 2-star, because it didn't do a whole lot. I'm going to do the math. This is getting a 2.75. I'm like, ooh, I feel like that's kind of harsh. But still, that's going to be a 3-star on Goodreads. This book, it's a good book, and I would recommend with a maybe. So if any of what I've told you all about it, and if you've read the back of the book and be like, ooh, that sounds like something I would like, give it a go, but maybe try it from your library or an ebook or audiobook, so it doesn't take up room on your shelf. Happy Thursday. It's the final day of the vlog, and we are about to do our final reset activity, and that is making a new background or spread for my Kindle. This was my February one, a Valentine vibe with winter aspects as well. We are going into a new season, so this is going to be our first spring spread of the year, which is super exciting. We have St. Patrick's on March, so I do want to incorporate that as well. So we're doing the St. Patrick's spring kind of theme for the background of the Kindle. I am going to be recording this like overhead like that, and it's going to be a time lapse. If you guys would like a slowed down one in the future, I could maybe do that on my ASMR channel, because it does take a little while and I don't want to keep y'all here all day. But we are going to go work on this now. This one was actually fairly quick, because I had some extra paper, and we don't want to let paper go to waste, even though I'm really bad about that, but we're not going to talk about that. And it had green in it, and I wanted a green background, and also my Kindle was kind of a green color, so, you know, for March it does mesh. But nature, because March is usually the month of the year where I can get to reading outside on a consistent level. It's one of my personal favorite months. March and October, I love. I wanted to have kind of like a mystical whimsy vibe with the little house there. We did have some clovers, added mushrooms, a frog, a fairy, because spring is the whimsy season. Spring and fall, but you can find whimsy all times of the year, let me tell you. But let's talk about what we're going to do the weekly wrap up, because I am going to be ending the vlog here. I'm going to be focusing on reading Wayward today, which is a sequel of like a 900-page book, and that would just be very hard to talk about in a vlog. But I've read over 100 pages every day this week. Hope I can do that today. Don't know if I will be able to. I've completed 2 books this week, which is fantastic. We're always here to do that. The sneak peek for next week's vlog, we're going to be doing my book club pick, which is Stone Fox. This is a book that we read in elementary school, and so it's a classic in my mind for me. We all were only so excited for our class to be the class to finally get to read, because I think we had to be in like 3rd grade or something to read it. And this is the copy that I had all the way back then, which I don't even know how many years ago that was. It was a very long time ago. It is about like a dog race in Wyoming, I think it was. I was really shocked when I was doing research on the book when I put it on my TBR that takes place in Wyoming and not Alaska, because Balto was another signature book movie for me. But Stone Fox is about a dog race in Wyoming, sled race. If you like sports, if you like dogs and cold settings, historical fiction, short books, this might be one that you would like to join us to read. I will have all my spoilery thoughts on Fable, which my Fable book club is always linked down below in the description of the videos. Not sponsored. I only say that. I don't think they even sponsor anybody, but just if anytime somebody's like, there's a link, I'm not sponsored. Nobody sponsors me, so don't worry. But all my spoilery thoughts will be over there, but my vlog will not have spoilers in it. That's what I'll be reading next week, and that is going to be our main focus. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a heart emoji in the comments below, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye. Come here. Oh, at least one of you came over here. Okay, here he comes.